All
Yeah,
right, sorry
I
guys.
didn't notice it either.
We've had a little bit of conversation. We just finished chapter 9, section 1, the acceptance of reality, which was really good. I encourage you to go back and read it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reread it now. I just forgot to hit the recording. And I was in the middle of discussing something that was pretty profound based on our reading. But what Mary was talking about is that the cat had come to her, right, and in spirit, and let her know that it was ready to go. And when she woke up in the morning, the cat had passed, or not had passed. The cat was still alive, still breathing, within the illusion of what we think of life. But the fact that, she was able to then scoop it up in her arms and have that moment with it,
Mm.
it looked in her eyes, she looked in its eyes. It was kind of an understanding. She said it was a very sacred moment. And then the cat passed very peacefully in her arms, right? And she had bonded with this being, right? And it had been a part of her life for the last 12 years. And she
Mm.
thought she was going to do a lot of grieving based on this dream. She thought she would be waking up and really have a hard time with this. And she said, really, it was so much, I would just was in acceptance, right? And I had said the same thing had happened to me when my father came to me the night before he passed to tell me he was going, right? I didn't see it as a loss because I had this awareness, I had this message from him that it was his time to move on. It was more of a transcendent kind of moment where I was in acceptance and saying, oh, okay, I get it. Thank you for letting me know. Kind of, I didn't say that, but in my knowingness, I was more accepting of it, right? And I didn't grieve it as being fearful or a loss because it was just like time to move on, right? Time to move from this reality or false reality to the next
Mm.
whatever, right? And I think that's the thing, right? We have this idea that what we don't know is fearful because we just don't know it. But it doesn't have to be fearful, right? We can accept and acknowledge that we don't know, but we can also accept and acknowledge that in those moments when we have those aha moments, that that memory of at one mint, right? That memory of just being in that flow of awareness and that flow of life and that flow of being eternal, the truth of what we are. We are eternal beings of light and love.
Mm.
And we get into that flow. And if we can just make that the normal reality, right? Make that acceptance part of our everyday being, then we will experience miracles, our natural occurring events. And when they don't happen, something has gone wrong, right? We just have to let go of the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I was at an event yesterday, and it was a pop-up event where they had vendors and food trucks and all kinds of things. And I was having, this meal that I had gotten from one of the food trucks, and all of a sudden I got this vision in my head that somebody was going to come up to me who was very hungry and didn't have the means to get a meal. And they were going to come up and ask me for my meal. And it was just like, it was, I don't want to say it was a strange thought, but it was not a common thought. Like that's, I don't usually think those things when I'm out
Mm.
having a meal. I don't think
Yeah.
someone's going to come up and ask me for my meal. But this thought came, and I explored it. And what does this person look like? And it was, first it was an older man who was very skinny, and then it turned into a young boy. And then my logical mind kicked in and like, okay, what would I do and how would I react? And and I went down this kind of bit of a rabbit hole of how I would respond. I just didn't think about it again. And I turned around and I had eaten most of my meal. There's a little bit left. And I went to throw it in a garbage bag. And as I went to do that, a voice called out and said, "Can I please have what you're going to throw away?" And I looked up, and there was a man
Mm.
who was asking me for my meal. This has never happened to me before. No one has ever asked me for my leftovers. I've taken leftovers from a restaurant and given it to people on the streets in the past, but no one has ever asked me. And I thought, wow, this just played out in my head like 5 minutes ago. And now here it is really happening. And of course, gladly, I gave it to him and I gave him some more, other things to help him with his next few meals. But if I had just stopped in that moment when I had that flow of consciousness, if I had stopped in that moment when I had the thought that someone was going to come up and ask me for my meal, at that moment, I could have looked around and really thought, who's going to ask me for my meal? And I probably would have found him looking at me, right?
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, that is a way to connect with and go into those moments, right? Instead of just passing them off as that was an interesting thought. How about why am I having this thought? Is somebody wanting my meal right now? Should I look around and see if there's someone who really is in need of this meal? And, it's just the way the universe works. If we just let go of what we think is our reality and tap into that flow of we are eternal, we are one, we are all connected. It's just, just a
Mhm.
thought, just a
That's
thought.
great. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great share.
It's just about our choices of do we stay attached to that ego and what we think we know, or do we have faith and a little willingness to go beyond that into something we don't know? Can we let go of the fear of not knowing and step into those moments more often? So anyway, anyone have any comments or thoughts before we continue? All right, let's keep going. We are on the answer to the prayer. And once again, Course in Miracles, chapter 9, section 2, the answer to the prayer. Everyone who ever tried to use prayer to ask for something has experienced what appears to be failure. This is not only true in connection with specific things that might be harmful, but also in connection with requests that are strictly in line with this course. The latter in particular might be incorrectly interpreted as proof that the course does not mean what it says. You must remember, however, that the course states, and repeatedly, that its purpose is to escape from fear. Let us suppose, then, that what you ask of the Holy Spirit is what you really want, but you are still afraid of it. Should this be the case, your attainment of it would no longer be what you want. This is why certain specific forms of healing are not achieved, even when the state of healing is. An individual may ask for physical healing because he is fearful of bodily harm. At the same time, if he were healed physically, the threat to his thought system might be considerably more fearful to him than its physical expression. In this case, he's not really asking for release from fear, but for the removal of a symptom that he himself selected. This request is, therefore, not for healing at all. The Bible emphasizes that all prayer is answered, and this is indeed true. The very fact that the Holy Spirit has been asked for anything will ensure a response. Yet it is equally certain that no response given by him will ever be one that would increase fear. It is possible that his answer will not be heard. It is impossible, however, that it will be lost. There are many answers you have already received, but you have not yet heard. I assure you that they are waiting for you. If you would know your prayers are answered, never doubt a Son of God. Do not question him and do not confound him. for your faith in him is your faith in yourself. If you would know God and his answer, believe in me whose faith in you cannot be shaken. Can you ask of the Holy Spirit truly and doubt your brother? Believe his words are true because of the truth that is in him. You will unite with the truth in him, and his words will be true. As you hear him, you will hear me. Listening to truth is the only way you can hear it now and finally know it. The message your brother gives you is up to you. What does he say to you? What would you have him say? Your decision about him determines the message you receive. Remember that the Holy Spirit is in him, and his voice speaks to you through him. What can so holy a brother tell you except truth? But are you listening to it? Your brother may not know who he is, but there is a light in his mind that does know. This light can shine into yours, giving truth to his words and making you able to hear them. His words are the Holy Spirit's answer to you. Is your faith in him strong enough to let you hear? You can no more pray for yourself alone than you can find joy for yourself alone. Prayer is the restatement of inclusion, directed by the Holy Spirit under the laws of God. Salvation is of your brother. The Holy Spirit extends from your mind to his and answers you. You cannot hear the voice for God in yourself alone because you are not alone. And his answer is only for what you are. You will not know the trust I have in you unless you extend it. You will not trust the guidance of the Holy Spirit or believe that it is for you unless you hear it in others. It must be for your brother because it is for you. Would God have created a voice for you alone? Could you hear his answer except as he answers all of God's sons? Hear of your brother what you would have me hear of you, for you would not want me to be deceived. I love you for the truth in you, as God does. Your deceptions may deceive you, but they cannot deceive me. Knowing what you are, I cannot doubt you. I hear only the Holy Spirit in you, who speaks to me through you. If you would hear me, hear my brothers, in whom God's voice speaks. The answer to all prayers lies in them. You will be answered as you hear the answer in everyone. Do not listen to anything else, or you will not hear truly. Believe in your brothers because I believe in you, and you will learn that my belief in you is justified. Believe in me by believing in them for the sake of what God gave them. They will answer you if you learn to ask only truth of them. Do not ask for blessings without blessing them, for only in this way can you learn how blessed you are. By following this way, you are seeking the truth in you. This is not going beyond yourself, but toward yourself. Hear only God's answer in his sons, and you are answered. To disbelieve is to side against or to attack. To believe is to accept and to side with. To believe is not to be credulous, but to accept and appreciate. What you do not believe, you do not appreciate, and you cannot be grateful for what you do not value. There is a price you will pay for judgment, because judgment is the setting of a price. And as you set it, you will pay it. If paying is equated with getting, you will set the price low, but demand a high return. You will have forgotten, however, that to price is to value, so that your return is in proportion to your judgment of worth. If paying is associated with giving, it cannot be perceived as loss, and the reciprocal relationship of giving and receiving will be recognized. The price will then be set high because of the value of the return. The price for getting is to lose sight of value, making it inevitable that you will not value what you receive. Valuing it little, you will not appreciate it, and you will not want it. Never forget then that you set the value on what you receive and price it by what you give. To believe that it is possible to get much for little is to believe that you can bargain with God. God's laws are always fair and perfectly consistent. By giving, you receive. But to receive is to accept, not to get. It is impossible not to have, but it is possible not to know you have. The recognition of having is the willingness for giving, and only by this willingness can you recognize what you have. What you give is therefore the value you put on what you have, being the exact measure of the value you put upon it. And this, in turn, is the measure of how much you want it. You can ask the Holy Spirit then only by giving to him, and you can give to him only where you recognize him. If you recognize him in everyone, consider how much you will be asking of him and how much you will receive. He will deny you nothing because you have denied him nothing, and so you can share everything. This is the way, and the only way, to have his answer, because his answer is all you can ask for and want. Say then to everyone, because I will to know myself, I see you as God's son and my brother. That was beautiful. Any thoughts or questions? I feel like that story I shared was in there a lot. The giving and the receiving and the value and the willingness to see your brother as yourself. The value of what you give, the value you put on what you give, the same value of what you receive when you accept it.
I'm trying to formulate what I want to share. In order to do that, we have to recognize our oneness, not believe we're separate. And when I caught myself doing it last night, watching football and having a judgment, which is feeling separate. It's the only way I could have a judgment about the sport. But I was watching it and I was seeing all these people just joyful, when their team would do something. And I'm like, why in the world, would I want to say, hey, everybody come on my side and let's judge this sport? I wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun when I was doing that. So I'm like, no, nothing's wrong here. Nothing's wrong here at all. And it just, I let go of the judgment and I joined with everybody having such a great time watching football. And and not, I just let go of whatever I thought was wrong with what I was seeing. If I was seeing, you know, what I was judging it as meanness.
Mm.
Like, no, we're all brothers. I need to forgive, forgive, forgive. And in doing that, then I will be forgiven of the meanness in me. So anyway, I enjoyed the football game much more
Mhm.
than
That's
I got
awesome,
myself.
Pam.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great recognition.
Yeah, you didn't take sides. That's very difficult to do in games like that when I watch some of them. Well, I don't really care about either of these teams, so I'll turn it off. It's funny, but that's what we do. We okay, I gotta root for somebody, otherwise it's not watching. But you transcended that and just the joy in the sport, you know, of
Yeah.
bodies that were not out and beating up on other bodies and trying to score these imaginary points and
Right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'll share something that was pretty neat. We got this years ago. We were invested in a timeshare, and we were so heavily invested in this thing. It was a financial burden, and we decided the only way out of it is to go bankrupt, and we did about 4 years ago. And then about 10 days ago, we had this letter show up from the timeshare, so saying basically, well, we know you've gone through bankruptcy, so we know we can't have anything, but we're just asking you to sign this and notarize it and have two witnesses and send it back so we can have access to the points that you had. The points are everything. Timeshares. And so oh my God, Denise, my wife, was just in such a tizzy about it. I'm going, no, it's okay. We have to go back to our attorney. And then I was thinking, well, I didn't have a lot of faith in him. So maybe we'll look at another attorney. And we started looking at stuff online. It's like, oh my God. And anyway, just her gut level was to go back to him. We scanned the documents. She wrote an email, which I helped her clean up. So it was a little more, you know, just a little more to be clear. And so anyway, he wrote a letter somewhere around here. There's a print of it, and was basically telling them that what they're doing is they've gone through a bankruptcy. What you're doing is illegal. Cease and desist is basically the point. And I'm going, yes. So so now if they come back, I mean, I was actually thinking about, well, could I take on a multi-billion dollar company and sue them for duress and anguish and pain and just really build it up. And Denise was like, and that was just a thought. And it's coming to me now that the complete release that he said is like, you better back off if you know what's good for you. And so we just felt like this tremendous load because this would have been income tax on a gain of, oh my God, a lot of money. And so we would have been paying tens of thousands of dollars in federal taxes on something that we no longer owned.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the absurdity of all this legal stuff and the links that companies will go to, the anguish that they cause people in this world of lack. And anyway, so it was all dissolved. And I just felt like, okay, good. Move past that one, and we'll take on as the next one comes up. Let's just have a little faith that if you have faith in what is true, is real, is really real, the rest of it, I think, just dissolves because it has no power. So just, think things through as carefully as you can, mull that over, sleep on it, as so many people have said, and, talk it over and so forth, and So doing that, and so we're much happier today than we were 7 days ago.
Well,
So
that's good. Good to have that off your head, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it was, somebody else that, that whole fear thing of like, oh God, I don't really trust my attorney because no, no, no. The reasons, whatever, had no substantiation in reality. And then he just turned around and like, wow. And so what I thought was just an average attorney, whatever that is, turns out to be, wow, I got to go on his website and write a glowing review. So there's that tennis match back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. With who? Who's present? There doesn't even need to be a tennis match.
Yeah, yeah.
I see your kitty. One of mine was just here and she's moseyed someplace.
Yeah, this is her thing now. She likes to climb up onto my shoulder and fall asleep. I don't know. It's a new thing. It's been happening like more frequently, I guess.
Wow.
The lap is no longer the chosen place to be on.
Wow.
She just wants to be right up on me. I think because she knows I can stand up and walk around with her and she's still with me. Whereas when the lap,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
up and moving around, then she has to get off. She's like, well, I'll just come up on her shoulder and then she'll just take me everywhere.
Wow.
All right, let's see if we can get through one more
Okay.
section. The correction of error. The alertness of the ego to the errors of other egos is not the kind of vigilance the Holy Spirit would have you maintain. Egos are critical in terms of the kind of sense they stand for. They understand this kind of sense because it is sensible to them. To the Holy Spirit, it makes no sense at all. To the ego, it is kind and right and good to point out errors and correct them. This makes perfect sense to the ego, which is unaware of what errors are and what correction is. Errors are of the ego, and correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. When you correct a brother, you're telling him that he is wrong. He may be making no sense at the time, and it is certain that if he is speaking from the ego, he will not be making sense. But your task is still to tell him he is right. You do not tell him this verbally if he is speaking foolishly. He needs correction at another level because his error is at another level. He is still right because he is a son of God. His ego is always wrong, no matter what it says or does. If you point out the errors of your brother's ego, you must be seeing through yours because the Holy Spirit does not perceive his errors. This must be true, since there is no communication between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego makes no sense, and the Holy Spirit does not attempt to understand anything that arises from it. Since he does not understand it, he does not judge it, knowing that nothing the ego makes means anything. When you react at all to errors, you're not listening to the Holy Spirit. He has merely disregarded them. And if you attend to them, you're not hearing him. If you do not hear him, you're listening to your ego and making as little sense as your brother whose errors you perceive. This cannot be correction, yet it is more than merely a lack of correction for him. It is the giving up of correction in yourself. When a brother behaves insanely, you can heal him only by perceiving the sanity in him. If you perceive his errors and accept them, you're accepting yours. If you want to give yours over to the Holy Spirit, you must do this with his. Unless this becomes the one way in which you handle all errors, you cannot understand how all errors are undone. How is this different from telling you that what you teach, you learn? Your brother is as right as you are. And if you think he is wrong, you are condemning yourself. You cannot correct yourself. It is possible then. Is it possible then for you to correct another? Yet you can see him truly because it is possible for you to see yourself truly. It is not up to you to change your brother, but merely to accept him as he is. His errors do not come from the truth that is in him, and only this truth is yours. His errors cannot change this and can have no effect at all on the truth in you. To perceive errors in anyone and to react to them as if they were real is to make them real to you. You will not escape paying the price for this, not because you're being punished for it, but because you're following the wrong guide and will therefore lose your way. Your brother's errors are not of him any more than yours are of you. Accept his errors as real, and you have attacked yourself. If you would find your way and keep it, see only truth beside you, for you walk together. The Holy Spirit in you forgives all things in you and in your brother. His errors are forgiven with yours. At one ment is no more separate than love. At one ment cannot be separate because it comes from love. Any attempts you make to correct a brother means that you believe correction by you is possible. And this can only be the arrogance of the ego. Correction is of God, who does not know of arrogance. The Holy Spirit forgives everything because God created everything. Do not undertake his function, or you will forget yours. Accept only the function of healing in time, because that is what time is for. God gave you the function to create in eternity. You do not need to learn that, but you do need to learn to want it. For that, all learning was made. This is the Holy Spirit's use of an ability that you do not need, but that you made. Give it to him. You do not understand how to use it. He will teach you how to see yourself without condemnation by learning how to look on everything without it. Condemnation will then not be real to you, and all your errors will be forgiven. Aha, that's how we do it. Well, that was good advice.
Mm-mm-mm.
Give it to the Holy Spirit. We always forget that, right? We always try to fix it ourselves. I can do it. I know how to handle this. All we have to do is give it to the Holy Spirit. Anytime we are not feeling truly joyous,
Mm,
give it to the Holy Spirit.
yeah. Mm-mm.
Anybody have any thoughts about that?
That last sentence, condemnation will then not be real to you, and all your errors will be forgiven. Well, I thought of nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists.
Mhm.
That's why all of our errors are forgiven.
Yeah, they're not real.
Yeah.
God created, God didn't create condemnation, so that's not real.
Mhm.
Ours towards someone else or theirs towards us, That's part of the dream. And gone.
Mhm.
It has no effect because it's not eternal.
Yeah. Good.
And we can choose at any moment to align with the truth in ourselves as soon as we stop being afraid of what we are. Stop being afraid of not knowing what we are. It's not that we're afraid of what we don't know what we are. And that's what we're afraid of.
Right.
We're afraid of the unknowing. We just have to have that little willingness to say, I'm not afraid. I choose not to be afraid.
Hmm. It brings back it was that poem, The Jabberwocky, and I can't remember how it goes now, but I'm pretty sure the Jabberwocky was invented by this author to be this nameless, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And we create novels and movies and bad guys and good guys. Oh my God. All in the name, a lot of it in the name of the dollar, the currency. Mm-mm-mm. Wow.
Yeah. So just goes back to walking the path, right? And knowing that it's simple. Not always easy, but it's simple, right? We can choose at any moment to just align with the truth and to have the little willingness and just to literally every morning when we get up say, I give my mind to the Holy Spirit so I can walk in peace. And
Mm,
as we meet each situation that brings up or stirs up a little fear, we can say, I give this instant to the Holy Spirit. Be you in charge, for I shall follow you, certain that your direction will bring me peace. Again and again and again and again, all day long, until it becomes a habit, right? And then in that habit, then we start seeing the miracles because we've given it the little willingness and the faith that we are so much greater than we think we are.
mm.
All right. Well, I'm excited for our next section, which we'll be reading next week, the Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness.
Mm.
Dun, dun, dun. Great to have you all here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Anybody have any shares or anything they like to say before we end?
Mm.
Okay. Well, thank you. I will see you guys next week, hopefully.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye, angels.